My daughter called the cold alpha judge Mama, then she sealed the courtroom for us. My daughter called the most feared alpha judge in the city, Mama, before I even knew that judge had once saved our lives. That was the part no one in Courtroom One ever forgot. Not the emergency lockdown, not the guards sealing the doors, not the way every lawyer, clerk, officer, reporter, and terrified petitioner went silent at the exact same time. It was Nell's voice. Small, clear, trusting. Mama. She said it while reaching both hands toward Chief Judge Seraphine Cross. And the world stopped. I had spent 2 years teaching my daughter to hide. Hide when someone knocked too hard. Hide when a hallway turned quiet. Hide when a man in a dark coat paused too long outside our apartment building. Hide when my old last name appeared on official paper. I had taught her the difference between safe voices and dangerous ones before she could pronounce her own name. But no one had taught her to reach for Seraphine Cross. No one had taught her to smile at a woman everyone else feared. No one had taught her to call that woman Mama. I froze beside the evidence cart, my court badge still clipped to my sweater, one hand full of sealed custody files, the other empty because my child had slipped from where I had hidden her between 2 archive boxes and walked straight into the center aisle. The courtroom was packed for emergency family motions. Rain streaked the tall windows. Security lights pulsed blue above the doors because the building had gone into lockdown 6 minutes earlier after a threat was called into the clerk's office. Nobody was supposed to move. Nell moved. She toddled across the polished floor in yellow socks, clutching the ear of her battered brown bear, and stopped at the base of the judge's bench. Seraphine Cross looked down at her. Chief Judge Cross did not look like a woman children approached. She was 39, tall, severe, and still enough to make silence feel deliberate. Her black judicial robe fell from her shoulders like armor. Her dark hair was pinned into a low knot, so precise it seemed carved. Her eyes were pale gray, the color of winter rain against courthouse stone. She had the kind of alpha presence that made liars forget their rehearsed answers. I had seen attorneys tremble under her questions. I had seen violent men lower their voices when she said their names. I had seen judges with twice her age step aside when she entered a room. And now my 2-year-old daughter had both hands lifted toward her. Mama, Nell said again. A bailiff inhaled sharply. Someone whispered my name. Liora. My body finally remembered terror. Nell, I said, but my voice was barely air. Seraphine did not move at first. Then, very slowly, she descended from the bench. The entire courtroom watched the most feared judge in the family court kneel on the floor in front of a child. She did not touch Nell. She placed one hand open on her own knee, palm up, offering instead of taking. "Who taught you that word?" she asked. Her voice was low, not cold, careful. Nell looked at her with impossible certainty and held out the bear. Seraphine's eyes dropped to it. The bear was old, brown plush, one stitched eye, one crooked ear, a yellow ribbon around its neck. I had found it in a charity bin when Nell was 6 months old. She slept with it every night, dragged it through grocery aisles, pressed it to my face when I cried in the bathroom and thought she was asleep. I had never looked inside it. Seraphine did. Her gaze sharpened. "Ms. Vale," she said without looking away from the bear. I flinched at my name. Not Liora Vane, the name on my current apartment lease. Not Liora Hart, the name I used at the emergency clinic. Liora Vale, the name I had run from. "Yes, Your Honor." "Is this your child?" My mouth went dry. Every lie I had survived on lined up in my throat, ready to save us badly. Then Nell put her small hand on Seraphine's robe and patted it like she already belonged there. I could not lie. Yes. The courtroom shifted. My supervisor, Court Director Helena Voss, turned white near the side doors. 2 attorneys looked at each other. The bailiff closest to me touched his radio. Seraphine rose with the bear in one hand and Nell still standing at her feet. "Lock the courtroom," she said. "It's already locked for building threat protocol," the bailiff answered. "Then seal the record as well." Helena stepped forward. "Chief Judge, with respect. Not requested." Helena stopped. Seraphine looked at the guards. "No one leaves, no one records, no one calls out. Anyone who attempts to contact the press before I lift this seal will answer to me in chambers, and then to disciplinary council." The room went so silent I heard Nell's soft breathing. Seraphine turned the bear over. Her thumb found a seam beneath the yellow ribbon. A tiny piece of waxed paper slid out, folded twice. Stamped with a court seal. My knees nearly failed. I knew that seal. Every clerk in the family division knew it. A sealed emergency protection order. Seraphine unfolded the paper. Her expression did not change, but the alpha stillness around her became something colder and far more dangerous. "Ms. Vale," she said quietly, "when did you receive this bear?" "I bought it from a charity bin." No, the word was not accusation. It was certainty. I stared at her. She looked at Nell, then at me. "This bear was placed in your possession 18 months ago by someone inside this courthouse." I could not breathe. "I don't understand." Seraphine's jaw tightened. "I do." That was the moment my past found the locked courtroom door and started pounding. "My name is Liora Vale. I was 28 years old, an Omega, a night archive clerk at Bellweather Family Court, and mother to a 2-year-old girl named Nell. I had not always been a woman who jumped at footsteps. Once, I had been a paralegal student. I had wanted a boring life full of tidy paperwork, strong coffee, and a daughter who could grow up believing thunder was only weather. Then I married Dorian Vale. Dorian came from a family that considered law a tool and people furniture. He was handsome in the way expensive things are handsome, polished, admired, and cold when touched too closely. He liked being seen as generous. He liked doors opened for him. He liked my quietness, until it became disagreement. I left when I was 4 months pregnant. I left with 1 duffel bag, $200, and a bruise on my wrist shaped like someone else's certainty. The police report disappeared. The clinic note was misfiled. The first shelter told me they had no room. The second shelter received a call from an anonymous donor and suddenly had a bed, legal referrals, prenatal care, and a woman named Mara who said only, "Someone wants you alive." I never learned who. I thought it was luck. Poor women call many things luck because knowing the machinery behind survival is often more frightening than hunger. After Nell was born, I changed apartments twice, changed names once, worked nights because childcare was easier to hide when the world assumed mothers worked days. Bellweather Court hired me for the archive shift because no one else wanted to spend midnight to 7 in a basement of sealed files, broken printers, and old fluorescent lights. I was good at it. Invisible work suited me. Sealed adoption records, emergency orders, custody transcripts, protection filings, old guardianship petitions, cases with names redacted so deeply they became ghosts. I handled other people's broken families all night and went home before morning hearings began. That was the arrangement. Safe enough. Until Nell's babysitter broke her ankle. Mrs. Adeyemi lived across the hall and watched Nell while I worked. She was 73, sharp as a tack, and the only person in our building who did not ask why I flinched when someone said my old last name. When she called me from the ambulance, furious at the icy stairs, and more furious at the paramedic who called her sweetheart, I had exactly 1 hour to solve an impossible problem. I could not miss work. I could not bring a child into the courthouse after hours. I could not leave Nell alone, so I chose the kind of wrong that keeps a child alive. I brought her with me. I packed crackers, a blanket, a coloring book, her bear, and the tablet with the cracked corner. I told her we were going on a secret library adventure. She clapped. I almost cried. For 4 nights, it worked. The basement archive was quiet. Nell slept under my desk in a nest of my coat and old file boxes. I finished my scans, updated sealed logs, and told myself I only needed a few more days. On the fifth night, the threat call came. Not to me. To the clerk's office upstairs. A distorted voice claimed there was a weapon in the building and named Courtroom One. Building security initiated lockdown. All staff were moved to secure rooms. I had Nell in a rolling file bin, wrapped in my coat, when the guards swept the basement and moved us upstairs. I told them the bin held emergency records. Nobody checked. Everyone was too busy being afraid. Then Courtroom One filled with trapped people, and Nell woke up, and Seraphine Cross walked in. I had seen her before, of course. Everyone in Bellweather had. The chief judge arrived before sunrise and left after everyone else stopped pretending to work. She moved through hallways with a black case in one hand, legal robes over one arm, and no tolerance for noise disguised as importance. She had rules. No performative outrage. No weaponizing children. No calling a terrified mother unstable unless one wished to define the word for the record. Attorneys feared her. Abusers hated her. Clerks worshipped her quietly because she read every page. I had never spoken to her, not once, but I had watched her from the archive window when she crossed the atrium at dawn, and I had wondered what it would be like to have that much certainty in your spine. Then my daughter called her Mama. And certainty became the most dangerous thing in the room. Seraphine placed the tiny sealed paper on the bench. "Director Voss," she said, "bring me the Emergency Protection Index for the Vale matters." Helena Voss stiffened. "I'm not sure which matters you mean." Seraphine looked at her. Helena stopped pretending. "I would need authorization to access that index during lockdown." "You have it. The index is restricted." I wrote the restriction. The room shifted again. I stared at Seraphine. "You wrote it?" She did not answer me yet. She looked at the bailiff. "Bring Deputy Clerk Amos Reed." Helena's face flickered. That was the first time I saw fear on her. 10 minutes later, Amos Reed was brought in through the side door by 2 officers. He was a thin beta man in his 60s with tired eyes, ink-stained fingers, and a cardigan so old it had become part of courthouse architecture. He trained half the archive staff. He had taught me how to read broken docket numbers and how to tell when a file had been altered. When he saw Nell in my arms and the bear on the bench, his shoulders sagged. "Oh," he whispered, "it found her." I turned cold. "What found her?" Amos looked at Seraphine. "I'm sorry, Judge. You were instructed to report any contact." "I know." Seraphine's voice remained level. "Explain." Amos swallowed. 2 years ago, before Miss Vale began working here, there was a sealed prenatal protection petition filed under emergency anonymity. Judge Cross signed the order. I handled the sealed custody threat index. When the petitioner disappeared, the order remained active but dormant. Petitioner. Me. My ears rang. "I never filed anything," I said. "No," Amos said gently. "Someone filed on your behalf." Dorian. For one terrifying second, I thought he had found another way to own us. Seraphine saw my face. Not Dorian Vale. I looked at her. Then who? Her expression changed. Only slightly. My predecessor. Helena laughed once, sharp with disbelief. "Judge Arlen is dead." "Yes," Seraphine said, "which is why he has not been answering my questions." The room did not move. Seraphine continued, "Judge Arlen signed temporary shelter authorization for Liora Vale under emergency seal after receiving credible evidence that Dorian Vale intended to challenge custody before the child was born. He then transferred oversight to my chambers before his stroke." I could barely understand the words. Why didn't anyone tell me? Amos closed his eyes. "Because the order was supposed to protect you, without creating a trail he could follow." "Who is he?" No one answered. I already knew. Dorian Vale had not been looking for me. Not openly. Because someone more powerful had made him believe the courthouse was watching. Seraphine looked at Amos. And the bear? Amos took a breath. When the child was 6 months old, Judge Arlen's former assistant believed Miss Vale had relocated without receiving the updated emergency contact card. We had no safe address. I arranged a charity donation drop through the shelter network. The seal was inside in case she ever came to court seeking help. My grip tightened around Nell. You put a sealed court order inside my daughter's toy? Amos flinched. It was the only item we knew would stay with the child. I wanted to be angry. I was angry. I was also remembering every time I had held that bear in the dark and thought we were alone. Seraphine's eyes moved to Nell. No, she said. We all looked at her. That explanation is incomplete. Amos went pale. Seraphine lifted the waxed paper. This is not Judge Arlen's seal. It is mine. The courtroom seemed to tilt. Helena Voss took one step back. Seraphine turned to her. You knew. Helena said nothing. That silence was confession enough. Seraphine's voice lowered. Director Voss, sit down. Helena sat. Everyone did. Except Seraphine. Except me. Except Nell, who had fallen asleep against my shoulder, as if she had not just detonated the life I had built out of fear. Seraphine looked at me then. Fully. For the first time, I saw something beneath the cold. Not softness. Responsibility. Ms. Vale, she said, I signed the final protection extension 18 months ago. I did not know where you were. I did not know you would later be hired into this courthouse. I knew only that a pregnant Omega had been targeted by a man whose family believed children were leverage and courts were doors they could buy. My throat burned. You saved us. I signed paper. You saved us. Her jaw tightened. As of this moment, I may have a conflict of interest. Helena seized the opening. You do, a severe one. You should recuse yourself from any matter involving Ms. Vale immediately. Seraphine did not look at her. I will recuse from adjudication. My stomach dropped. Then she said, I will not recuse from protection. The words settled over the room like a lock turning. Bailiff, she continued, place Director Voss in administrative hold pending security review. Deputy Reed, retrieve the sealed index. Ms. Vale and her child will remain under court protection until the threat source is identified. Helena stood. This is outrageous. Seraphine's eyes turned to ice. A child just walked into my courtroom, carrying a court seal hidden by someone inside this building. Outrage is insufficient. Helena did not resist, but she looked at me as she passed. Not with hatred, with warning. That was when I understood the night had not saved us. It had only opened the file. By dawn, the threat call was declared false. The building reopened. Reporters outside smelled scandal before they knew its name. Court staff whispered about the child who called Judge Cross Mama. And I sat in a sealed interview room with Nell asleep in my lap, while Seraphine stood on the other side of the glass, speaking to 3 officers, 2 ethics attorneys, and the presiding administrative judge. She had removed her robe. Without it, she looked less like law and more like the woman beneath it. Black suit, white shirt, silver watch, shoulders carved by discipline. Still terrifying, somehow more human. Amos Reed sat beside me, hands folded. I should have told you, he said. Yes. I was afraid contact would expose you. Yes. I am sorry. I looked down at Nell. Her cheek was soft against my arm. Did she really sign the order? Judge Cross? Yes. Amos nodded. Judge Arlen began it. Judge Cross renewed it. Twice. Quietly. No announcement. No press. No political credit. She kept the file alive when everyone else wanted to close it as an old emergency. Why? He looked through the glass at her. Because she does not stop reading before the last page. That sounded like the courthouse version of a love language. Not love for me. Of course not. She did not know me, but something in my chest shifted. For 2 years, I had believed survival was only my labor, my running, my fear, my locked doors, my whispered lullabies. Now I learned there had been a woman in a black robe somewhere above me, signing extensions I never saw, holding back a family I thought I had escaped by luck. I did not know what to do with gratitude that big, so I held my sleeping daughter and did nothing. Seraphine entered an hour later. The room changed when she did. Even Amos sat straighter. She noticed and looked vaguely annoyed. "Mr. Reed, you are dismissed for medical rest after you complete your sworn statement." "I'm fine, Judge." "You are 64 and lied to me for 18 months. Do not test my generosity." He stood quickly. When he left, Seraphine remained by the door, not approaching, not sitting. "May I speak with you?" I almost laughed. Everyone else asked permission to leave her rooms. She asked permission to enter mine. "Yes." She sat across from me. Nell stirred, opened one eye, saw her, and smiled. "Mama?" she mumbled sleepily. The air thinned. I wanted to apologize. Again. Seraphine lifted one hand slightly. "Do not. I didn't teach her that. I believe you. She says it sometimes when she wants comfort. She says mommy to me, but mama started after she saw a picture book with 2 mothers. I don't know why Children recognize safety before adults permit themselves to." I stared at her. She looked uncomfortable, as if she had said more than intended. "Does it bother you?" I asked. Her eyes moved to Nell. "Yes." My heart sank. Then she added, not because she said it, because I wanted for one unacceptable second to answer. I stopped breathing. Seraphine's face went still. Like she had surprised herself. Like truth had crossed a line before she could call it back. "I should not have said that." "No," I whispered. "You probably shouldn't have." Silence stretched between us. Not empty, not safe yet, but alive. Seraphine folded her hands on the table. "Dorian Vale has filed an emergency custody petition." The world snapped back. "What?" "It was entered at 6:12 this morning, filed through a private attorney using sealed access codes that should not be available to him." My fingers tightened around Nell. "No. The petition names you as unstable, deceptive, and unfit. It references your concealed employment, false identity, and unauthorized presence of a minor child in a court building." I felt sick. He knew. Yes, he knew I worked here. Someone told him. Helena Voss. The name sat between us. Seraphine did not say it yet. "The petition requests immediate temporary custody pending investigation," she continued. "He can't have her. He will not." The certainty in her voice was dangerous. Then she corrected herself. "I cannot be your judge, but I can make sure the law is not used as a weapon without resistance." I looked at her. "You barely know us." Her mouth tightened. "I know enough." "What do you know?" "That you brought your child into a courthouse because your childcare collapsed, and poverty narrows choices until wrong becomes survival. That you lied to keep her fed, not to profit. That your daughter reached for me without fear because no one has taught her to expect danger from everyone. Which means despite everything done to you, you have not raised her inside your terror." My eyes burned. Seraphine looked away, as if my tears were evidence she had mishandled. "Sorry," she said. "For what?" "I have been told my comfort resembles cross-examination." A laugh broke out of me. Small, shaky, real. Seraphine looked back. The corner of her mouth did not move, but her eyes changed. That was the beginning. Not the mama, not the courtroom, not the sealed order. That tiny, impossible laugh in an interview room while the city prepared to take my child. That was where fear made space for something else. The custody hearing was assigned to Judge Malika Thorne, who everyone agreed was fair, unbribable, and allergic to theatrics. Seraphine formally recused from hearing the matter. Dorian's attorney filed a motion demanding she be barred from all contact with me, Nell, or the case. Judge Thorne denied it within 20 minutes. The order said Chief Judge Cross had administrative protection authority over courthouse security and sealed record compromise, but no adjudicative role in the custody dispute. In normal language, that meant Seraphine could keep us alive, but could not rule in our favor. Dorian hated that. I knew because flowers arrived at my apartment that afternoon. White lilies. My least favorite. No card. Seraphine saw them when she came with a court security officer to assess my building. Her eyes turned flat. Do not touch those. I wasn't planning to treasure them. Good. The officer bagged the flowers. Seraphine walked through my apartment like she was reading a crime scene. 2 rooms, leaking window, mismatched chairs, Nell's drawings taped to the fridge, a blanket fort half collapsed near the radiator. She stopped at the blanket fort. Nell crawled inside and peeked out. "Judge," she said proudly, though it came out like Dudge. Seraphine crouched. "Is this a legal structure?" Nell blinked. I covered my mouth. Seraphine inspected the blanket. "It appears unstable." Nell frowned, deeply offended. "Mine." "I see." Nell handed her a wooden block. Seraphine took it with the seriousness of a sworn affidavit. "Thank you." I watched them from the kitchen doorway. A woman feared by every family attorney in Bellweather City was sitting on my worn carpet, holding a block offered by a toddler who had no idea she was supposed to be afraid. Something in me softened, then immediately panicked. Softness was how things got in. Softness was how people found the places to hurt you. Seraphine looked up as if she had heard the thought. "I can arrange temporary safe housing." "No." The answer came too fast. Her expression did not change. "Very well. You're not going to argue? Would it help?" "No." "Then no." I did not know what to do with someone who did not force help through my locked teeth. She stood. "If you remain here, security will install a camera at the exterior hall, reinforce the lock, and check the stairwell twice nightly until the hearing." "That sounds expensive." "It is. I can't pay for that." "I did not ask you to." "I don't want to owe you." Her gaze held mine. "You owe me honesty regarding threats. Nothing else. That's not how power works." "No," she said quietly. "That is how mine will work with you." I wanted to believe her. I wanted it badly enough to distrust myself. Over the next 2 weeks, my life became evidence. Every doctor visit, every daycare note, every rent receipt, every text from Dorian, every photograph of Nell's bruised newborn wrist from the day he had grabbed the car seat carrier hard enough to tip it. I had kept everything. Invisible women keep records. Seraphine did not handle my legal case. She could not. But she sat in the courthouse cafeteria at 6 in the morning with me, while my appointed attorney, Priya Shah, organized documents and explained what would happen. Priya was a fierce beta woman with sharp glasses, gentle hands, and no patience for wealthy men who discovered fatherhood only after losing control of the mother. "Dorian's petition is aggressive," Priya said. "That does not make it strong. It says I lied about my name." "You did." I flinched. Priya's voice softened. "And we will explain why. Courts dislike deception. They dislike coercive control more when properly documented." Seraphine sat 2 chairs away, silent. Not too close. Never performing ownership, but present. Priya glanced at her once. "Chief Judge Cross, with respect, your presence is making 3 attorneys at the next table forget how to chew." Seraphine did not look over. "They will adapt." I laughed into my coffee. Priya smiled. It became a routine. Morning meetings, document review, Security updates. Nell building towers with the cardboard sleeves from coffee cups, while Seraphine pretended not to help, and absolutely helped. One morning, Nell shoved a cup sleeve toward her. Tall. Seraphine placed it carefully on the tower. It wobbled. Nell clapped. Seraphine said, "This structure violates several codes." Nell shouted, "Tall!" "Yes," Seraphine said. "That too." I loved her then, not in the way that makes declarations, in the way a starving person loves the first warm thing. That frightened me more than Dorian. The hearing began on a Thursday under a sky the color of old paper. Dorian arrived in a navy suit, clean-shaven, handsome, carrying concern like a prop. When he saw me, he smiled. My body remembered him. Before my mind could tell it, we were not in the old apartment. Seraphine stepped into my line of sight. Not touching me. Blocking him anyway. "Breathe," she said. "I am." "No." I inhaled. Her eyes stayed on mine. Again. I did. Nell was with Mrs. Adeyemi and court security in a protected room, watching cartoons and eating banana slices. I repeated that fact to myself like prayer. Judge Thorne called the case. Dorian's attorney spoke first. He painted me as unstable, transient, deceptive, a mother who lied on employment forms, used false names, concealed the child from her biological father, and hid inside the courthouse system until discovered. He did not mention the bruise. He did not mention the disappeared police report. He did not mention the midnight calls where Dorian breathed into the phone and said nothing. Of course he didn't. Men like Dorian build stories out of what they leave out. Then Priya stood. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She showed the clinic records, the shelter logs, the emergency prenatal notes, the missing police report request, the sealed protection order, the old threats, the financial abandonment, Dorian's complete absence from Nell's life for 2 years. Then she showed the access log, proving Dorian's attorney had obtained restricted information 3 days before filing. Judge Thorne's expression changed. Dorian's smile did not. But his eyes moved to the back of the courtroom. To Helena Voss. She sat there in a gray suit, not as court director, as a witness. My stomach turned. Priya called her. Helena swore the oath with a face like stone. Under questioning, she admitted she had accessed the sealed index. She claimed administrative necessity. Priya asked why that access was followed by a call to Dorian's attorney. Helena denied it. Priya produced the phone record. The courtroom went very still. Then Helena made the mistake of looking at Seraphine. Seraphine was seated in the back row, legally silent, hands folded, face unreadable. But the air around her had gone glacial. Judge Thorne leaned forward. "Ms. Voss," she said, "I suggest you consider the next answer with great care." Helena broke. Not dramatically. People rarely break dramatically when the walls are made of paper. She said Dorian Vale had offered influence, future appointment recommendations, and protection if the old sealed file disappeared and the new petition moved quickly. She said she believed Seraphine Cross had become too sympathetic to unstable Omega petitioners. She said the court needed balance. Priya asked, "By balance, do you mean handing a child to a man with documented coercive behavior because her mother was poor enough to be vulnerable?" Helena said nothing. That silence became the loudest testimony of the day. Dorian lost the emergency petition before lunch. Judge Thorne's ruling was precise. Temporary custody remained solely with me. Dorian was barred from contact pending full investigation. Helena Voss was referred for misconduct review. The sealed protection matter was preserved. Court security was ordered to maintain safeguards. I heard the ruling. I understood the words. Then I stood, walked into the protected waiting room, found Nell watching a cartoon about dancing frogs, and fell to my knees in front of her. She patted my face. "Mommy sad?" "No," I sobbed. Mommy is breathing. Seraphine stood in the doorway. She did not enter until I looked up. Then Nell saw her. Mama! The court officer beside her nearly dropped the clipboard. Seraphine closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, she looked at me, asking a question I did not know how to answer. Could she come closer? Could she accept what my daughter kept giving? Could we allow this word to become something more than accident? I nodded once. Seraphine entered. Nell launched herself into her arms. The most feared alpha judge in Bellweather Family Court caught my daughter like she had been waiting to learn how. The full investigation took months. Dorian's family did not disappear simply because one hearing exposed them. People with money do not vanish when proven cruel. They hire different lawyers, leak different stories, and look for cracks in whatever wall stands between them and the thing they believe they own. There were articles, not naming Nell because Seraphine's seal held, but hinting enough that people guessed. Chief Judge in Ethics Storm, Hidden Omega Clerk, Secret Child in Courtroom, Cross Protection Order questioned. Seraphine's career became a battlefield. She was accused of conflict, overreach, emotional compromise, favoritism, and impropriety. One columnist wrote that a judge who allowed a toddler to call her mama in court had lost necessary objectivity. Seraphine read the article at my kitchen table. Nell was coloring beside her. She circled the phrase necessary objectivity with a red pencil. Incorrect, she said. Nell copied her by drawing a circle on the table. I said, do not teach my child judicial annotation. She shows aptitude. You are both impossible. Nell shouted, Objection! Seraphine looked at me. I looked at her. We both lost. I laughed first. Then she did. A real laugh. Small, stunned, like it had escaped a locked room. The ethics hearing came in winter. By then, Seraphine had become a regular presence in our life in ways no article could understand. She never moved in. She never assumed. She came when invited and asked before staying. She sat on my kitchen floor to build block towers. She walked us home when court nights ran late. She taught Nell to say, sustained, which I told her was a punishable offense. She also learned me, my coffee, my panic tells, my habit of reading every exit in a room, the way I went quiet when someone offered too much too fast, the exact distance I needed when fear came back wearing Dorian's smile. One night, after Nell fell asleep on the sofa with her bear under one arm, Seraphine stood at my sink washing 2 mugs. I stared. What are you doing? Washing mugs. You are a chief judge. Yes. You don't have people for that? At home, yes. This is not your home. She stopped. The silence landed harder than I intended. I'm sorry, I said quickly. No, she said. You are correct. That's not what I meant. She dried her hands slowly. What did you mean? I looked at Nell asleep on the sofa. I looked at the reinforced lock on my door. I looked at the woman who had signed orders before she knew my face, and now stood in my kitchen like she was waiting for permission to want the ordinary things. I mean, I don't know what this is, I said. Seraphine nodded. Neither do I. That seems unlikely. You know everything. I know statutes. I know procedure. I know when a witness is lying. I know how to write an order no appellate court can damage. I do not know what to do with wanting to come here after every hard day because your daughter says my name like I deserve it. My throat closed. And me? Her eyes lifted to mine. With you, she said quietly, I know even less. That was the closest she came to confession for a long time. It was enough to ruin my sleep for days. At the ethics hearing, they tried to make her love sound like corruption before either of us had named it. 3 judges sat on the review panel. Dorian's attorney testified. Helena Voss testified under immunity. Reporters waited outside. My name was anonymized in official records but not in gossip. Seraphine wore a black suit instead of robes. I sat in the back with Priya. Nell stayed with Mrs. Adeyemi. The panel chair asked Seraphine if she regretted sealing the courtroom. No. If she regretted maintaining administrative protection after discovering a personal connection to the file. No. If she understood that the child calling her mama created an appearance of emotional conflict. Yes. If she should have stepped away entirely. No. The chair leaned forward. Why not? Seraphine looked at the panel. Because conflict rules exist to prevent power from being used unfairly. They do not require a judge to abandon a child when court staff have compromised that child's sealed protection file. I recused from adjudication. I did not recuse from humanity. The room went silent. One judge coughed. The chair asked, "Do you have a personal relationship with the mother?" Seraphine did not look at me. No. My heart dropped. Then she said, "Not yet." Priya's pen stopped. The room changed. The chair's brows rose. Seraphine continued, "I have not entered one because I understood this hearing was pending and because Miss Vale deserves every choice free of suspicion that gratitude, fear, or institutional pressure shaped it. But if your question is whether I care for her and her child, the answer is yes, deeply. If that disqualifies me from being a judge, then this court should examine why indifference became its preferred proof of integrity." I could not move. The panel did not remove her. They issued a formal caution about optics, praised her separation of adjudicative duties, condemned Helena's breach, and closed the disciplinary matter without sanction. The newspapers hated that. Nell did not care. She was busy gluing pasta to construction paper. Seraphine came to my apartment that evening carrying the hearing decision in one hand and a small bag of groceries in the other. "Why groceries?" I asked. "You forget dinner when anxious." "I do not." She looked at the empty stove. "I object to that answer," Nell shouted from the table. "Sustained." I pointed at Seraphine. "This is your fault." "Yes," she said, and for once she sounded proud. After dinner, after Nell fell asleep, Seraphine stood by the window. Rain blurred the city lights. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "The hearing is over." "Yes. I am no longer waiting because of pending review." "No." She turned. I had seen Seraphine Cross face armed officers, furious attorneys, corrupt administrators, and men who mistook the courtroom for a stage. I had never seen her look uncertain. "I need to say this carefully," she said. My heart began to pound. "Okay. I do not want you to mistake protection for claim. I do not want Nell's word to decide something you have not chosen. I do not want my position, history, or usefulness to become a cage that looks like safety." My eyes burned. "Seraphine." "I love you," she said, and the room stopped pretending to be ordinary. "I love your courage when you are tired. I love your records, your stubbornness, the way you tell a frightened child the truth in pieces gentle enough to hold. I love that you survived without becoming cruel. I love Nell in a way I do not have language for yet, though she has apparently assigned me one." I laughed through tears. Seraphine's composure fractured. "Only slightly. Enough. I am not asking for an answer tonight," she continued. "I am asking permission to stop hiding mine." I crossed the room, slowly, because she deserved to see the choice happen. "Permission granted," I whispered. She closed her eyes. When I reached her, she did not touch me. Not until I lifted my hand to her face. "May I?" she asked, voice rough. "Yes." Her hand settled at my waist like a promise written carefully. The kiss was soft, terribly soft. For a woman made of law and winter, Seraphine Cross kissed like someone asking a locked door whether it wanted to open. I opened. Not all at once. Enough. The adoption petition was Nell's idea. Not legally, of course. Legally, it came after Dorian's rights were terminated following the full investigation, after criminal referrals, after months of hearings, After Dorian learned the old truth powerful men hate most, paper can protect the powerless if someone refuses to misfile it. But the idea came from Nell. She was 3 by then. She had a courtroom playset Seraphine claimed was educational, and I claimed was deeply concerning. One evening, she placed a tiny wooden figure in a block chair and declared, "Mama stays." Seraphine went very still. I looked at her. Nell repeated, offended by our lack of speed. "Mama stays." So we filed. Private adoption petition. Sealed record. No press. No ceremony beyond the people who mattered. Judge Thorne presided. Seraphine stood beside me instead of behind the bench. That alone made the day feel like the world had learned a new shape. Nell wore a yellow dress and carried the old bear with the empty seam repaired in red thread. Mrs. Adeyemi cried before anyone spoke. Amos Reed brought tissues and pretended they were for courtroom dust. Priya looked smug enough to be disbarred from humility. Judge Thorne asked the required questions. Did Seraphine understand the legal responsibilities of adoption? Yes. Did I consent freely? Yes. Did Nell understand, in an age-appropriate way, what was happening? Nell lifted the bear. "Mama stays," she said. Judge Thorne paused, then smiled. Record will reflect the child's position is clear. After the order was signed, Seraphine did not cry. Not exactly. But she held the paper with both hands, and I saw the tremor. Nell ran to her. Seraphine lifted her. This time no one in the courtroom froze when Nell said "Mama." This time people smiled. The wedding came later. Not because we needed law to prove family. We had learned better. But because Seraphine wanted one promise that was not written in emergency language, we married in the courthouse garden at sunset, beneath the old magnolia tree that bloomed beside the family court entrance every spring, despite car exhaust, reporters, and lawyers who stepped on its roots while arguing into phones. I wore cream. Seraphine wore a white suit and looked like every statue of justice had resigned in admiration. Nell wore yellow and carried the rings in a red evidence envelope because she insisted it was official. Priya nearly fell over laughing. Seraphine said, "It is properly labeled." I said, "You are not helping." Mrs. Adeyemi walked me down the stone path. Amos cried openly. Judge Thorne officiated. Half the courthouse pretended not to watch from upper windows. When Seraphine spoke her vows, her voice was steady. Of course it was, but her hands trembled. I have spent my life believing safety was something written, sealed, and enforced, she said. Then I met a woman who built it out of locked doors, cheap coffee, bedtime stories, and impossible courage. Liora, you taught me that protection without tenderness becomes only control. Nell, you taught me that one word can open a life. I promise to be worthy of the name you gave me before I deserved it. Nell whispered, "Mama crying." Seraphine said, "The record will not reflect that." Everyone laughed. I kissed her under the magnolia tree while the courthouse windows turned gold. For the first time in years, I did not look for exits. I looked home. Years later, people still asked about that day in Courtroom One. They wanted the dramatic version, the toddler, the feared judge, the sealed bear, the corrupt court director, the custody battle, the ethics hearing, the adoption, the wedding. They wanted to know if I was afraid. Yes. They wanted to know if Seraphine was as terrifying as the stories said. Also, yes. They wanted to know when fear became love. That answer was harder. It was not when Nell said "Mama." That was the door opening. It was not when Seraphine sealed the courtroom. That was law. It was not when she challenged Dorian, or survived the ethics panel, or signed adoption papers with trembling hands. Those were proof. Love came in the smaller records. Coffee at 6 in the courthouse cafeteria, a hand not touching my back unless I leaned first. A judge sitting on my worn carpet while my daughter declared a blanket fort legally sound. A woman feared for her coldness, learning every warm corner of our ordinary life and treating each one like sacred evidence. Love was not the rescue. It was what happened after, when no one was watching and safety had to be chosen again. Nell is 6 now. She knows she has 2 mothers. She knows one works with records and one works with rules. She knows the old bear is special, but not why, not yet. She knows Mama Seraphine can silence an entire room, but cannot say no to one more bedtime chapter if Nell asks with both hands folded like a tiny attorney. Dorian is gone from our lives. Helena Voss lost her position and her license. Amos retired and sends Nell birthday cards addressed to the Honorable Future Chaos. Priya became godmother by force of personality, and Seraphine still reads every page before signing anything, including school permission slips. Especially school permission slips. Sometimes, late at night, after Nell is asleep and the city has settled into rain, Seraphine and I sit by the window with the old bear between us on the table. The repaired seam is visible. Red thread against brown cloth. Damage acknowledged. Danger removed. Story intact. I still don't know why she called you Mama that day, I told Seraphine once. She looked toward Nell's closed bedroom door. Then at me. I do. I raised an eyebrow. Do you? Yes. Then explain it, Chief Judge. Her mouth curved. Barely. She was correct. I leaned against her shoulder and let myself laugh. Once, I had thought the court was a place where powerful people decided whether mothers like me deserved to keep what we loved. I was not entirely wrong, but I learned something else in that locked room. Sometimes the law is a door. Sometimes a seal is not a cage but a shield. Sometimes the coldest woman in the courthouse is cold, because she has been standing between children and fire for so long that everyone mistakes the frost for absence of feeling. And sometimes a 2-year-old sees the truth before the adults can survive admitting it. My daughter called Seraphine Cross Mama. The courtroom froze, and then the judge who had already saved us once stepped down from the bench, opened her hand, and chose to become the word